Hello everyone, how are you doing and welcome back. So you're new to Battlefield 1 and you see the support class and you're not really too sure what it's about? Well, hopefully this video will bring you up to speed with how to play it and what the role of the class is. So the support class is the jack of all trades in Battlefield 1. One of your roles is to give ammo to your team, so whether that be primary, secondary or resupply their gadgets. It's to suppress the enemy as well, so with the weapons that you have, they have high capacity magazines, so 100, 200, 250 bullets plus. So it's basically just to lay down fire and keep them in cover, allowing your team to sort of move up and take them out. You can also damage and repair vehicles as well. So with your LMGs, you can damage planes in this game just by simply shooting at them. And you can also damage tanks as well with the gadgets, which we'll cover later on. And there's also a gadget that enables you to repair vehicles. So as you can see, it does quite a lot on the battlefield and can help your team in massive ways. This class primarily engaged in sort of close and medium range. I'm not meaning like sort of SMG sort of range, but like sort of close quarters. You can see some of these clips, you know, I'm up there with sort of the assault players and a few medics as well. So sort of that kind of range, but not like on the front lines where, you know, having to clear corners and stuff like that. It sort of excels. Most of the weapons do at that medium range, and with some of the higher capacity guns as well, you can sort of do long range engagements as well. This obviously isn't as successful as using sort of semi-autos or snipers, but you can just spray massive amounts of bullets at enemies and basically just keep them in cover, allowing your team to move up and sort of take them out. So we kind of covered this already, but the basic role of the support class is provide support, resupply teammates, suppress enemies, and repair and destroy vehicles, both ground and air. The recommended perks, so it's in the game. It's outgoing suppression is increased by 50%, and fully suppressed enemies by LMGs are spotted. So a really useful perk, since, you know, the support class is sort of built around suppression, and by suppressing enemies, you know, even if your team haven't been able to see them, but you have, just spray in that direction. You know, you don't have to hit them as long as you're sort of shooting near them, and they'll be spotted for your team, which makes it, you know, people are aware that enemies are in that direction and they can be taken out, whether by planes, snipers, tanks. You know, you kind of get the idea. Dependable is another good perk. So when stationary or moving slowly, you're invisible to spotting flares. So as a support player, you will find yourself sometimes posted up in positions, sort of with quite a bit of cover around you. You know, just due to the nature of how the class weapons are. So, you know, it's a real good perk when you're sort of, you know, posted up in a building or like a choke point. Just keep you off the map that bit longer, you know, because you are a prime target for enemies, and especially enemy snipers as well, since you're more on that sort of slower moving side. So Eagle Eye, decrease spotting time by 2 seconds. You know, it is quite a useful perk. You know, just keeps you off the map. You know, it keeps you sort of less highlighted longer. You know, spotted longer, and it's just useful for, you know, on those situations where you do need to, you know, you just keep getting spotted. You know, you're not spotted as long. So healing hands, so increase speed by 105 when suppressed. So you will find as a support player, like I mentioned, you do get targeted quite a bit, just because, you know, you're on that slower moving side. You do find yourself sort of every now and then sort of being standing around for a bit, sort of in cover, and you do find that people just seem to target you more. So when you suppress, you know, it just enables you to kind of get out of the area quicker and sort of be able to relocate and get into some cover if need be. And this one's more for if you want to play the class in sort of that repairing sort of support role for vehicles. So engineer, so holding the repair tool increases your walking speed and also increases explosive damage by 20%. So this is more for when you're repairing vehicles, because as you'll find, you know, you'll see in this game vehicles do get targeted, both sort of especially ground vehicles get targeted by other assault players and enemy planes as well. So by just being able to walk around the vehicle quicker and just repair it on the move, and sort of just reduce that explosive damage, it enables you just to be able to take that bit more of a brunt and repair and keep the vehicle in the fight. And the final perk is in fact a default one called cover, and basically this just reduces incoming suppression by 25%. So since suppression is going to come up so much in this video, and we've already talked about it, and it's quite a sort of main mechanic in Battlefield 1, I'm just going to cover it now so there's no sort of confusion when I'm mentioning it. So basically, suppression in Battlefield 1, you know, there are factors that can affect it, sort of distance. You know, when it's sort of close range combat, suppression isn't really a thing, but over sort of medium and longer range distance, suppression becomes a factor. And basically, what suppression does is sort of anyone that sort of is affected by it, so when you're shooting at enemies, basically increases the spread of their weapon. They have scope sway, impaired healing, and sort of alters their vision, so you get this kind of blur effect on your screen. It kind of makes it harder to see enemies and sort of add distance. So that's kind of how it affects both enemy players and also yourself if you're receiving suppression. So by running that cover perk, it reduces that kind of effect by 25%. Now we're going to move on to weapons. It's quite a long list, and I'm just going to sort of talk briefly about why each one's kind of a good sort of recommendation, a good pick. But like I always say in these videos, try what works for you. Some things that are quote unquote the better option don't always work with people, just how like they feel or look on the screen and stuff like that. So just have a play around. You might find something that works better for you than others and that kind of thing. But this is just the sort of general recommendation for if you're just starting the game and want to kind of have an idea of where to maybe take it. So like I said, primary weapons are the LMG, so the light machine gun. The Lewis gun, which is the sort of the default starting weapon, is a good sort of mid-range LMG with decent fire rate and decent damage, and like I said, it's a good starting pick. The Madison, it's a sort of close range, perfect for close range fire and close quarters engagement. So within that sort of 200-meter range, especially on maps that are like sort of that close range, more infantry focus, it is sort of a solid choice for that kind of engagement range. The Bennett Mercy, I think that's how you say it. I probably butchered that. It's one of that jack of all trades. A bit like the support class. It is sort of a very jack of all trades weapon. Good at most ranges. And that trench variant can be used for that close quarters range, with the telescopic variant, for longer ranges. So, if you want that sort of all round pick, you're not really too sure what to go with, give that a go, and you never know. The MG15, it's got a high bullet count and sort of good recoil as well, and it's good for suppressing enemies and sort of mid to long range engagements. So like I said, quite a few LMGs do slot into different engagement ranges, and this is one of those that are good. That's good for that mid to long range engagement. The bar, this is a real solid choice for close range. It's got a low sort of magazine count, but it's high damage and a great fire rate. So on those real close quarters maps where you're pretty much moving from building to building or down real tight packed alleyways, it's a real good weapon that can sort of not be on par with LMGs like the Automatico or something like that, but SMG, sorry, but it can still hold its own in those kind of situations. So that's a real solid sort of pick for those close quarter maps. The Hewitt Auto is the sort of LMG like at level 10. It's a bit like the Lewis gun. It's got a much better recoil, and it's got real good accuracy as well. However, there's sort of a lower magazine count on it, so it does sort of play and hold it back a bit. But it's still a real solid choice once you get to level 10 on the support class. The Chunk Shot, I butchered that, but it's a real high damage, good range LMG. But it is like a bit like the bar. It just have that sort of low magazine count, and it does like it's got a low fire rate as well. So it's one of those that you can't really sprint around corners with, like the bar and being up close due to that. But on the more open maps, just because of the slower fire rate and accuracy, it's just a real solid weapon for like sort of tap firing like 1 or 2 bullets off. That's a real solid choice for those kind of more open maps, kind of like Giants of Shadows, or maybe some of the other open maps as well. Just real useful on those maps. The Parabellum, so real good close range once again. It's got real good fire rate, amazing, and it's got a good ammo count as well. But the accuracy is and the recoil is really bad. So it's one of those where if you get used to it and you sort of do really well with it, you can absolutely decimate enemies. So it's one of those where it takes a bit of practice, but once you feel comfortable with it, you're pretty good. The Panino, very high magazine count as well. It's great damage and sort of good sort of all-round range. It can also be used as a great AA gun as well. So like I mentioned, in this game, LMGs can damage enemy planes, so it's just good for harassing planes. Even if you don't take them down, if you can do like 20 damage to a plane, and they have to like sort of back off and repair, it keeps them out of that fight and sort of stopping them from bombing your team that are trying to capture objectives and move around the map. So it's just really useful just to harass enemies with, really. And the M1917, it's got a really high bullet count. It's got a slow rate of fire, but it's really good at suppressing. It's just once again one of those weapons that has a high magazine count, and you can just sort of just lay down like continuous fire and just keep enemies pinned behind cover or a bit wary to peek or keep them spotted all the time, that kind of thing. And the 0818, it's similar to the Parabellum. It's got that bit better range, but it's a real solid choice once again. So that's sort of a few options you can pick from. And sort of, go back and just listen to this again and just make a few notes. But those are some of the best, sort of better options. But like I said, give them all a try, because you never know what you might like or find better as well. And if anybody has any other sort of weapons that they recommend, leave them in the comments down below. So just before talking about gadgets, I just want to cover the ammo pouch versus ammo crate debate, and sort of give my opinions on which one's kind of the better choice, depending on playstyle and whatnot. So pouches are better if you focus on sort of, you're that more offensive player. You like to be on the front lines, up there, just constantly pushing your objectives, always fighting enemies, as it sort of instantly resupplies ammo and gadgets. So you can just resupply individual teammates, and sort of you don't have to put it on the floor or anything like that. You just press whatever button it is to resupply. So on PC it's like 3, the default one, and you just or 4 depending on which one you have it bound on, gadget slot, sorry, and you just throw it out to your teammates, and use it pretty much like that. But the only downside is, like I said, it is limited to only supplying one person at a time. So if there's sort of a group of teammates, kind of just got to spam it out there, but it doesn't take too much time, because you haven't got to sort of, you just have to aim it in the general direction. It will lock onto the teammates for you. The crates are sort of a slower resupply, but it's better for larger crowds and sort of that more defensive or sort of choke point game style. So you don't have to keep supplying individual teammates. You just put the box on the ground, and it resupplies sort of your teammates around you. It does take a bit longer for their gadgets to resupply, but it's sort of more sort of better for if like you're posted up in a building, or your team's posted up in a choke point, going down an alleyway, and you just put it on the ground, and it just enables you to sort of, it does the work for you. You haven't got to think about it, and try and fight enemies. It's just on the ground, just passively resupplying your teammates ammo and gadgets. So it kind of does the work for you. So, like between the two, it does depend, on your playstyle and kind of how the map and game mode is. If you're maybe playing like operations, where it's like 2 points and like you're defending, it might be better just to maybe have a ammo crate down on the floor behind you, sort of just behind the front lines, and just allow your teammates to come back, resupply, and get back into the fight. Or if you're attacking, you want to use ammo pouch since the line's constantly moving forward, so you haven't got to like keep worrying about placing it back down. You can just throw an ammo pouch out to your teammates. So sort of have a think about these things when you load it into the game. What the game mode is, how you got to thinking you might play this sort of play style of this game, and kind of what map you're on as well, how you make that choice. So how do you know if somebody needs to resupply or needs ammo? So it's this icon here, and it sort of flashes. It's not hard to miss, but you just have to be sort of on the lookout for it, and that's how you know if somebody needs ammo. So going into gadgets, we've covered the ammo, so we won't go over that again, no need to repeat it. The mortar, however, is a stationary sort of weapon that you put on the ground, and it sort of fires an explosive shot over a great distance. There are 2 types. So you've got the air mortar that will explode sort of just above the enemy, so it won't hit the ground, it will explode in the air. So it's just like it has like a big area of effect, and it's best used on infantry. So due to not having that quite like precision as the high explosive mortar round, it is better for just sort of splash damaging enemy infantry really, and so just annoying them or even killing them if they've been damaged. Like I just mentioned, the high explosive shell, it has a smaller sort of area of effect, so it's best used on enemy vehicles. So due to like the mortar being fired up in the air and sort of arcing down, you can land it on top of vehicles and sort of damage them from above on that sort of weaker point. And it can also be used on infantry, but it's better like sort of used on sort of vehicles, due to sort of the nature and the area of effect and the size of the blasts really. So there's also the repair tool, which looks like a wrench. Repairs vehicles, stationary turrets, and anti-air. So if you see like a teammate's vehicle that needs repairing, you can just pull it out if it's in the gadget slot, repair them, get some points, be on your way. Same with stationary turrets or anti-air. If you come across on a point that's been destroyed, repair that anti-air, and you start taking down aeroplanes. Same with stationary turrets, repair it, start harassing tanks and infantry. The limpet mine is a sort of sticky timed explosive that can be stuck to vehicles and surfaces. So if a tank rolls on pasture or a car, you can just throw it to the side, stick it, and do a bit of damage to it. You can also throw it to surfaces. So as you've seen in some of these clips, I've thrown it onto sort of sides of buildings to create an opening where enemies are hiding behind it, so then we can engage them and that kind of thing, and just like create chaos sort of that way with it. It is a great gadget that I like to use from time to time. Next up, we've got the crossbow launcher. It's a bit like the mortar. It doesn't have the sort of the mini map thing that sort of shows you where it's going to land, but it can be sort of used to arc and sort of fire over greater distance and sort of damage enemies. So you've got the frag variant, which is effective against infantry. And then you got the high explosive, so it has a bigger AoE, but it's less effective against infantry due to that having that bigger area effect. So depending on what kind of one you want to use, kind of what role you want to kind of play, those are the two options. You know, me personally, I always just go for the frag, just because I like firing it into sort of narrow and tight spaces. So you just fire it in there and it does that bit more damage. So up next we've got the grenades. I've sort of picked 3 of my favourites, I guess, but there are more options. So if I'm sort of primarily focusing on damage of vehicles, I'll pick the light anti-tank grenade, and this is just to like aiming to harass and destroy enemy vehicles really, and sort of just, you know, just making them have to repair and stop engaging our infantry or our vehicles. You know, if I destroy one, that's great, but primarily I'm just going there just to be annoying really. And I'm going to do a vehicle on sort of critical points on tanks and other vehicles as well. That's coming in the future for those who are wondering. Up next to the impact grenade. This is one where, you know, if I damage an enemy and they run around the corner, I just throw it back around the corner and it instantly blows up on them. It is a bit cheap and annoying, but hey, it is what it is. And finally, the smoke grenade. I always go on about the smoke grenade, but hands down, it's probably one of the best grenades in Battlefield. Not for getting kills outright, but allowing you to flank enemies, block them, flank around, shoot them in the back, and that kind of thing, you know. That's why I always just root for the smoke grenade and always promote people using it. And finally, to end out the video, we're going to cover some basic class tips. So use cover wherever you can, you know, set up in hard to hit places, whether it be behind a wall or, you know, some sandbags, or just somewhere where your whole body isn't showing in the open. You know, as long as, like, you know, if you can cover most of your body, you know, half to 3/4 of it, that's the kind of what you want to be aiming for. And if you can get the height advantage as well on the enemy, just that way then there's less area of yourself showing, so it's harder for them to hit you, but you can see more of them. You know, it just makes it easier for you to get kills on them. Be on the move always. So, you know, since the nature of the support class is just to lay like absolute as many bullets as possible down range as quickly as possible, you know, you will sort of attract attention to yourself, whether it be from snipers, planes, other players. You know, pretty much everybody's sort of on the lookout for you. So, you know, you want to, you know, fire down a few bursts, and then just kind of be on the, then sort of move to another position, fire a few more bursts, move to another position. And like I mentioned in the recon video, you can sort of set up a loop where you sort of move around sort of several places and sort of just rotate between them, and just kind of, you know, be always laying down fire and just helping your team out. And like I said, you don't have to be accurate with this class. You know, like one of the roles is suppression, and one of the perks does sort of focus on you sort of suppressing enemies. So even if you don't getting hits off or getting any kills or anything like that, as long as you're sort of firing in that general direction of the enemy, and you got the perk on, you know, or you just, even if you don't have the perk on, you're just keeping them in cover and not being able to peek you or peek your team, and allowing your team to move up, you know, you can still be a sort of asset on the battlefield and a benefit to your team. However, if you do want to sort of more accurate fire and be able to hit enemies at those sort of long range distances, there is a bipod mechanic in Battlefield 1. In previous games, you did have to sort of deploy it yourself by either pressing like a certain button on controller or a certain keybind. In this game, however, it just automatically deploys. And the way to tell if it's deployed or not is by looking at the reticle. So as you can see here, when I'm sort of stood up and the bipod isn't deployed, there's sort of a wider sort of spread on the reticle. But when I lie prone, as you can see, it sort of narrows and tightens. So that shows that the bipod is deployed. So to deploy the bipod, just simply either lie down or crouch or stand up by a windowsill, and just by looking at the reticle, you can see whether or not it has deployed. Pretty much when it is deployed, the LMG just becomes like a full laser beam. Like, there's pretty much no recoil on the majority of, if not all, LMGs, so it's really good for sort of just long range, sort of sustained fire and sustained accurate fire. Obviously the trade-off is you're more of a sitting duck, you can't strafe or move around because it will sort of, obviously your character will like sort of undeploy the bipod, so there is that trade-off there. But if you want to just get like a sort of quick sort of like, I don't know, 20 round burst off and then just dip, there is that option there. So that's just some general class tips. If there's any veterans watching, you got any more tips, make sure to drop them in the comments down below and help the new players out. Always, you know, we want to help everyone. We're all noobs at one point. Just being able to help the next player sort of skip the steps and get to where we are now. It's always makes the games more fun. But yeah, if you found this video useful, you know, make sure to drop a like, share if you want. Anybody that's new to Battlefield, you know, give them a heads up about this video. You want to see more sort of content like this, as well as other Battlefield games in the future, make sure to subscribe. You know, there's plenty of videos to come, guides and tips and whatnot. So yeah, if that's what you're looking for, you know, drop a subscribe. Up on the screen now, we've got a few more sort of Battlefield 1 related videos. Got the whole playlist for new players up on the screen now. So if you're new to Battlefield, check out the playlist. There's a few class guides in there, support. Well, this is a support one now, but you know, medic, assault, recon, just general tips as well, and a sort of video that YouTube recommends you watch as well. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one.